going on, guys? It is Aiden Hutchinson.
What's up, man? It's your boy Amon-Ra St. Brown.
What's up, everybody? It's Calvin Johnson Jr. here, a.k.a. Megatron, a.k.a. First Ballot.
Greetings to everyone out there in the YouTube land. I'm Ahmed Hassanin, and I just want to give a shout out to Coach Dan. Thank you for all the support you show the team and the players. Everyone hit the like, subscription button, and yell woo in the comments. Thank you, and go Lions.
Greetings and salutations to everyone out there in YouTube land. This is Dan Skipper, offensive weapon for the Detroit Lions. Make sure you all help support Lions Talk Live and Coach Dan by clicking on that like and subscribe button. Everybody, woo!
Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host, once again, Dan Thornton. Hey, want to thank you all for waking up here today. Lions Talk Live Morning Show Edition. And I think we've got a little something to talk about today. As you guys all know, this has been a very busy week for the Detroit Lions. Lions have been the most active team in the NFL as far as retaining players, signing players, letting players go. They've been moving. They've been making moves. Not always the moves all Lions fans want as far as for this big name or that big name. I think they filled in a lot of holes. Yesterday, even though I thought it was going to be a quiet day, later in Friday, we found out Lions are going to add a couple more parts, a tight end, another cornerback. They've addressed some spots quite heavily. Then you also got some whispers or rumors from a couple NFL insiders. Maybe the Lions are going to add a little bit more to that defensive line. We're going to get into that during the main top of the day. For those watching, we are going to start off with the main topic of the day and then get into another segment and then 5 headlines. Now, wow, we're going to try once again to get Riley O'Brien on the show. Sounds like he's got everything worked out now, and he'll be able to join us about halfway through this particular broadcast. Real quick, before we get into all the above, if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. We're about, I don't even know, about 60, maybe 50 some subs, whatever it is, away from hitting 16,400. So if you can help out with that, I surely would be thankful. Also, if you have a half-second time, completely 1,000% free of charge. Hit the thumbs up button, the like button, hit all the buttons. We try to get every episode of the show between 200, 300, 400 or more. Thumbs up or likes. Last, never least, if you are maybe looking to just get better health. Maybe you want to try to get your cholesterol down, blood pressure down, whatever it may be. Go to the wife's web store or web center, whatever you want to call it, web page, jensavagefitness.com. You can find out all sorts of different stuff that she uses on me, basically as her guinea pig. And I can tell you they've worked out swimmingly for me. A number of you guys do use her products, and I guess you say the same things. If you're on the show right now and you have used them, you want to throw some thoughts in the comment section, let everybody know your thoughts on it. Try to be as unbiased as you can be. But check them out. I can only say they've worked for me. All right, with all that done, set out of the way, we're going to get rock and rolling and kicking off with the main top of the day because you know what? I think Brad Holmes' plan is starting to be revealed. 1, 2, 3, main topic of the day. Main topic of the day. Have you seen this man before? If I'm going to bring him up on your screen, and I think the answer is yes. There's a growing words and wisdom that Detroit Lions may have already reached some sort of unofficial agreement with a couple of vets in the NFL on the defensive line. One of them has been rumored to Detroit for about a month now, and that would be Cam Jordan. As you know, Cam Jordan is 37, going on 38, and does not want to take part in really off-season stuff. At this point in his career, him and Calais Campbell are father time in the NFL. And, man, the fact that they're still playing at a high level is a shout to them. There are a lot of suggestions, including some NFL insiders, like I said, that say the Detroit Lions have had some contacts and rumors with both gentlemen and may already have agreements in place to sign one or potentially 2 of them. So if that holds water and that's true, I think we're all going to revisit the Detroit Lions defensive line and have a vastly different opinion. So with that information, what I want to do, and again, it's going to be a little different today, I want to do a pseudo mock draft based on that information for you guys and what we've done so far this week in free agency. Trying to put myself in the role of GM without making any trades. Here's what I came down with. And again, trying to give you guys something a little different. With a first pick in the first round for the NFL draft. And again, this is going to hold water if the Lions do sign another defensive end or two, whether it's Cam Jordan, Calais Campbell, or whoever else. I think if you get some veterans in there, now you mix in an Aiden Hutchinson, now you mix in a Med Hassanin or somebody else, this makes a whole lot of sense to me. So let's get into the pseudo mock draft with the first pick in the 17th round, 17th pick in the first round. I had us taking Keldric Faulk. He was there, and we did get some trade offers. I did this on a simulation. I said, now we're not going to take those trade offers. If you don't know Faulk, let me tell you, get to know him. He's got size. There are reports that he's as big as 285 pounds, while his 40 time is dropped a little bit from what you see on the screen. He's now in the high 4.6s. That's an insane amount for a 6'6" guy who might end up being the leader of the free world at some point because he's that kind of human being. Everybody that's done personality examinations on him, which you typically do get with NFL draft picks, says the same thing. Want him to be your kid, going to be a future business leader. If you ever want to get into politics, he would do quite well. And doesn't that sound like somebody who's a Brad and Dan kind of guy? He can shut down the run. He can get to the quarterback. And if you're mixing him in a rotational capacity as a rookie, well, I think you've got really something there. I'm not going to spend all day on him because you guys are free to do your own research on it. But I can only say this. If they get him, I'm giving it an A+++. He's got the personality traits. He's got the work ethic. He's got the size you can't teach. He's got speed. He's got it all. And if he's there at pick 17, I think it's an absolute win for the Detroit Lions. All right, so let's move on to the second round here. And again, I didn't make any trades, any swings of the bat. So we're going to go on to the second one, Anthony Hill Jr. Now, this one, you had a couple options. There was a couple safeties I really liked there. And again, not making any moves, not trading any draft capitals or future considerations. But Hill Jr., what does he give you? He gives you some size, and he gives you great range. His RAS scores are off the chart. Sort of like if you remember Jack Campbell, didn't exactly have 40 time, but his RAS scores, a culmination of all of his different athleticisms come together. Well, that's what you got in Anthony Hill Jr. Is he going to be a day one starter? I think the answer could be no, but that's week one. You get to week 3, week 4, I think he could assume the starting role and just play significant snaps prior to that. He's not the biggest linebacker at 6'2", but he's not small. He's roughly 240 pounds with a 4.540. Tackles well. He's got a lot of upside. And again, I try to, as a scout or former general manager / coach, I try to go with things I can't teach. He's got the personality traits, just like Faulk. So I like that. You can't teach that stuff at this point in people's lives. You are, for the most part, who you are. But the athleticism, I liked it a whole lot. All right, going on to the next pick here, and that's Chris McClellan. Now, if you don't know who he is, let me tell you who he is. He's got size, and that's one of the things I did like. And again, trying to pay attention to a lot of stuff here. He's a defensive tackle who shuts down the run and, yes, can get a little bit after the quarterback. His interior pressure isn't the greatest, but at 6'4", we'll just say 310 to 320 pounds, there's a lot of upside to be had. His 40 could be a little bit better, but you know what? You're asking him to shut down the run first, so you kind of expect some of that. Moving on to the next one here. This is where I really got stuck on things. It took me a couple minutes to really decide who to go with. I ended up going with this gentleman, Seth McGowan. And I probably killed that name, so just is what it is. There are reports that say he's as big as 230 pounds. He's 6 foot. He is a running back. There was a defensive end I really liked, and I'm not going to jump into who I was going to take. I liked him. I just decided to go running back because Isaiah Pacheco's on a 1-year deal. You want to keep costs down. We all get it. Lions going to re-sign Gibbs. So how do you help deflate the running back room's overall salary burden on the team? You bring in a rookie like this. You want somebody who can power, do things a little bit differently than Gibbs. Well, this is kind of the guy. He can catch the ball. He can block. He's got some speed, sub 440. And like I already mentioned, he's got some size. That's the direction I decided to go for multiple facets. 1, you got a bit of a power back. 2, you help deflate the running back room overall as far as their cap burden. Next guy here as we continue to power through here, VJ Payne. Now, you're going to ask, well, who's VJ Payne? I've got an answer for you. He is perhaps one of the most athletic safeties in this draft. Most people don't know about him. So if you want to dive into the rough, circle his name, do your own conclusions, and come up with your own work. He's at a 4.440. And that doesn't include his cone drills, his lateral quickness or anything. He is an athletic freak of nature at 6'3.5". And if you can snag him, I hope the Lions do. One thing I think he does need to do a little bit better is locating the ball. You see evidence of it in some of his video, other times where he kind of just loses sight of the ball. And this is why he's available at this point in the draft. I've got him going to us at pick 157. So just for a frame of reference here, I like him. I like him a whole lot. I hope the Lions can get him because I think he is an absolute steal this late. If you believe in your ability to coach, if you believe in his ability to want to learn, which I do, from when you start getting this late in the draft, it's harder to find personality trait information or confirmation stuff, enough interview, enough time where you hear somebody talk, and especially for longer time frames where you can actually analyze their personalities. I like Payne a whole lot. I think he will bring the pain to the other team. All right, moving on to the next one here. And that's going to be Daylen Everette. Sort of the same reasons that you just saw with VJ, and that's he got size, 6'1", and we'll just say a quarter, 200 pounds. You look at that 40 times, sub 4.4. Again, sort of like with VJ, he locates the ball, but not consistently, which is why he's down at this point in the draft. There's a lot of good stuff about him. Tackles really well. I like how he wraps up his form, his technique, but he's got to be able to locate the ball. It's usually something that's harder to teach, but if you're going to take a gamble on somebody this part in the draft, this is somebody I want to gamble on. Moving on to the next one here. And this one, I think I've had him in all three of my quote-unquote mock drafts. That's Sam Roush out of Stanford. The guy is an athletic freak of nature, and yes, with those glasses, man, he looks like Clark Kent or something like that. But 6'6", 270 pounds. There are some reports that he's actually over 270 pounds while running a 4.7. That's fast, by the way, for a man that size. He is a tight end. He is a blocking tight end who can get out and catch passes. He's not just designated out there to block and then they just stand around for a minute. He can go out and do some things offensively. That's why I like him. A lot of these guys you're seeing with the mid to later picks, I'm trying to find people with athletic traits you can't teach. Now, if they have the right personality traits, do you feel like you can coach them up? You know, you're going to have some gambles here and there for sure. The next one here, you're going to call me a homer for this one, but you'll hopefully understand why I want him. Most of you know I'm a USC fan. Instead of taking the running back, I nearly took a USC defensive end. But I was like, nah, I'll go with the running back. But I couldn't turn down this one here. You'll understand momentarily. With the very next pick, this is pick 213. Now, I would be remiss if I said this guy is going to kill a stat sheet because he doesn't. But Eric Gentry is all of 6'7.5". He is 220, 230 pounds, somewhere in that range. He runs a 4.540. Athletic freak. Just has to learn more football. So this late in the draft, and again, pick 213, you probably don't have huge expectations. So I'm going to try to place some of those expectations on the coaching staff that you can take somebody who's just genetically incredibly rare. And if you feel this guy can pan out, you roll the dice on a late round pick. Because imagine somebody with a RAS score that is nearly perfect, perfect being 10. He's at, let's see, let me look it up here, 9.78. So it's not far off from being perfect. And if you've got that kind of size, you know what you do, especially if you are going to be Kelvin Shepherd and play more zone or use him as a blitzing linebacker from time to time, if you can get him to hit the gaps, etc. That's a heck of a lot of size and a heck of a lot of speed coming downhill on you. Depends on how you want to use him. But again, being a homer here, I know who he is. I'm rolling the dice. And yes, I'll probably get some flack for that. But you know what? It's okay. Sometimes you got to take flack when you're hosting the show. All right, last one here. Again, sort of like Gentry and a lot of other guys on this list with the very last pick the Lions have. This is pick 222. I'm going to go with an offensive tackle in Riley Mahlman, who is 6'8" and 320 pounds. Now, his 40 time is not impressive, although I guess you could say for an offensive tackle, that's not bad. But his lateral quickness is pretty impressive. What do you want on a tackle? You want to be able to keep leverage. You want your arm length to come out there. You want to get on him. When talking about him, really the only reason why he's probably down this far in the draft is his arm are a little bit shorter than desired. They're sub 33 inches. He's at 32 and a quarter. So you are losing almost a full inch there off the prototypical frame of a left tackle or just a right tackle, left tackle. We'll just say tackle. But you look at the speed, you look at the size, you look at things you can't teach. This late in the draft, you're going to have to roll the dice on somebody. You're going to have to find something that everybody else missed 6 other times when they picked. Or it could be more, I guess, if they have more than one draft pick per round. But Riley was the guy we went with, and that's what we've got there. Now that you've seen the evidence as provided, again, Cam Jordan, if the rumors are true that the Lions are going to go for him and just sign him later in the offseason, that way he doesn't have to come in and do workouts, it makes a lot of sense when you start putting him around, say, a Keldric Faulk or maybe somebody else on this list or somebody else in the draft. Doesn't mean the Lions are going to draft everybody I say. That's never going to happen. But I would say this. You start mixing in a Hassanin along with the Aiden Hutchinson, along with, Cam Jordan or, I don't know, Calais Campbell or somebody else you bring in. It makes a lot of sense. You can have some veteran players kind of coach them up, develop them along with your coaching staff. You can put more early in the season on the veteran players while protecting those veteran players while rotating in some rookies. And as the rookies get more experience, maybe you take a few snaps per game off of some of the veterans and bring them in. There's a lot of people over at NFL Network that think the Lions do have some sort of agreements, although they don't say who. Cam Jordan is mentioned. ESPN also contributed to me putting together this show because they did have some of the same corroborating information that the Lions are talking with a couple of defensive ends. If it is Campbell, if it is Jordan, these two guys are, yes, they're 37 and 40. They're going to come in, and early in the season, you guys get it. They'll shine. Those legs will hold up. But you start getting about the middle of August, if you don't have some younger players coming in and taking down some of their snaps, they're going to burn out. They're as human as anybody else. This is what I've got. You're basing these picks on the information provided by NFL Network, ESPN, and Timbuktu, and anybody else in between. I like a lot of these guys. I like the future of these guys and the developmental. I know a lot of Lions fans, because of the 24 draft, don't want to hear about projects. But let's face it, if you're getting anybody of worth in the mid to late rounds, they're probably going to be a project. There's a reason why other scouts then identify them. Whatever your thoughts on it, throw them at me. We've got about 12 minutes until Riley gets here. So now, as I promised, we'll head over to 5 headlines now and then get into Riley O'Brien. So real quick, 1, 2, 3, 5 headlines now. All right, 5 glorious headlines coming at you. The most underrated move Detroit Lions have made in free agency so far by Christian Borom of SI.com. We went into this maybe 2 days ago when the signing happened. Kade Mize is probably going to be the most noticeable signing that we've made. We all knew the Lions needed to address the offensive line. They did it. But Christian Eisen on a 1-year contract, you're hearing more and more people praise the Detroit Lions for this move. Yes, he can be a safety. Yes, he can be a cornerback. Yes, he's got some speed. He's got some athleticism. He's 5'10" in a quarter of an inch or something like that. So I get it. He's got a little bit more size than the vast majority of Lions cornerbacks last year. But the fact that he gives you some flexibility to play both the safety and cornerback spot, Christian Borom dives into this. Check out the story if you have time today. I actually agree with a lot of his assessments. He's a reliable depth piece, if nothing else, especially with the situation with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, the big unknowns with their injuries. He's going to bring you in somebody who's been there, done that, started for the Bucs. Let's face it, that Bucs defense was not bad the last several years. All right, moving on to the next one. New Lions offensive tackle Larry Borom on what it means to come home to Detroit. Sideline report. Michael Callwater with this one. I'm going to power through these 5 headlines now just so we can get to the Dew Crew comment section a little bit. But Big Larry, his mom was crying, he said. She was so happy when he called her to tell her he's going to be back home. She's going to be able to come watch games, etc. He said, quote, "It's surreal. It doesn't feel real because this is home. I don't even know how to explain it to people, but I'm going to say I can't really put it in words. It grew on me into the it grew onto me into the man I am today. This city is nothing but people who get up and get after it. You know what I'm saying? Question mark. Like, it's nothing but hustlers. People are hard workers in this city. I take that with a lot of pride. So me being here, me being able to put on that jersey is everything. I'm not letting the city down. I'm not letting the team down. I'm not letting the fans down. They want me to wake up. They want me to grind today. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to represent. So you read stuff like that, and there's a whole lot more quotes from him. I think the Lions knew what they were doing. If you go back and watch the couple times he played, the couple games he really shined last year, you see a lot of promise in why maybe Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell rolled the dice on him. You also see evidence of why the other teams didn't go after him. But he's going to have a little extra energy to play for the Detroit Lions. I think that's clear reading over his quotes, watching in those interviews. And I don't think he's going to be a starter for us. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I wish the best for any of our signings. But I'm guessing he's going to bring a very competent level of backup that we really didn't have a whole lot last year. If he can do that alone, maybe come in and play some gold line packages or special teams or whatever, the Lions got a big win with him. And I think, hey, that's really what you're looking with a lot of these selections in free agency. Can you get more out of them? Can you get the most out of them? Can you make the overall depth of the team that much better? If you do that, you probably won. All right, Lions address big offensive concern with latest free agent signing, Detroit Jack City, story by Richard Lewis. So again, yesterday we made some moves. Lions added Tyler Conklin. It's a smart move. The Chargers apparently were less than happy about losing him. It is what it is. Sometimes you're a winner and somebody else is a loser. But with Conklin, you guys get it. He's going to come in. He's going to block. He's going to give you a certain layer in that running game that did miss quite a bit last year. I'm not here to say he's out to replace Sam Laporta, that Brock Wright's a bum and move on from him, Mick, or anything like that. I'm just here to say with Conklin, it seems like Detroit Jack City agrees with it. You added a lot of skill and a lot of firepower to it. And again, is he going to be a starter? No. Is he going to make the depth chart in that tight end room better? I think that answer is going to be yes. Next one here. Lions receive warning over cutting Pro Bowler Taylor Decker. The heavy story by Dave Holcomb. Dave Holcomb, I'm just going to summarize this one, was not happy with the Lions making the move away from Taylor Decker. Understands Lions going to save around 15, 16 million, but he thinks that doesn't matter. He thinks the Lions are going to take a big step backwards at the tackle position, whether it's left or right, because he got rid of Taylor Decker. Also points out the lack of loyalty to Taylor Decker, and players are going to notice that. I don't know, man. My personal thoughts, he's not wrong, but he's also not right. What do I mean by that? Taylor Decker had aged out. Taylor Decker last year, you guys knew, he practiced like 2 times the entire season, and it's hard to have a positional group really function well if they can't ever work together other than in games. My opinion as a coach, it's hard to play somebody that never practices. Taylor Decker's a warrior. Nobody's taking those flowers away from him. He's battled for this organization for 10 years. We all probably also know as fans, at some point, the end comes for everybody's playing career. Sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 33 in Taylor Decker's case. My opinion is nobody's signed him yet. Nobody's called about him. There is no whispers, rumors. Taylor Decker's going here. Ben Johnson hasn't called him, said, hey, I know you personally. I think they messed up. I'm signing you to the Bears. That probably means other teams so far, unless they get into a dire situation, have come to the same assessment that Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions have. Taylor Decker's playing career is near its end. I don't wish that on anybody, but it's unavoidable, especially once you have a bunch of injuries. I wish Taylor Decker the best. Last the 5 glorious headlines now. Detroit Lions add Roger McCreary, Tyler Conklin in latest free agency moves. Yahoo Sports. Won't spend much on this just because we already talked about one of the two. But what do you guys think of Roger McCreary? He's somebody who started, and I think he's played pretty well. Is he going to be a starter here in Detroit? I don't think that's the expectation. My personal opinion is Rocky Osing, Terrion Arnold, and DJ Reed are going to be your starters. Now, obviously, there's some kind of question marks about TA right now. Yes, it could be that Rock isn't a starter. Maybe McCreary beats him out, or I don't know, maybe somebody else on the depth chart. Maybe Rakestraw beats him out. But if nothing else, I think the level of competence in the depth has gone up exponentially. Your size has gone up. Your athleticism has gone up. And I think that's a bigger thing. We all know the Lions secondary struggled to stay healthy last year. We all know that, hey, we talked about a ton. The Smurfs had a hard time guarding 6'2", 6'6", whatever it was. They just physically couldn't go up there. Well, Lions have gotten younger, bigger, faster, and stronger, and the depth chart currently in the cornerback position, I like all the moves they've made so far. They're not home run moves, but you know what? You have less glaring holes heading into the draft. All right, all that done, so the way, let's go to the Duke Crew. We got about 5 minutes till Riley O'Brien's going to join us. So let me scroll to the top of the screen, if you please. I'm moving, I'm shaking, I'm moving up the charts. Almost there, still going, still trying. All right, and let's see, kicking off with almost there to the screen. All right, there we go. Michael, greetings, salutations, Coach and Dan and Duke Crew. Exclamation points, one pride. Woo! Back at you, Johnny. Great morning, folks. Hopefully you're getting ready with it. Dennis, greetings, salutations to Coach Dan. Thank you very much for that. And Coach Dan of the Duke Crew with an exclamation point. And back at you, Dennis. Going in, I've liked the first week of free agency, not a hype train, but some good signings on the lower cost. Yes, we have been very fiscally responsible. Who's the next person that is rumored that the Lions won't get? Well, now you know Cam Jordan. And to be fair, they did name a couple different people. He's just one of the ones of note. And I understand the thoughts that if you're going to sign him or Calais Campbell, it will be late into training camp. They're not going to be guys that want to be there day one. All right, Don Burr. Nobody knows Brad Holmes' plans, but even Dan Campbell, laughing out loud, leaked. Okay, hey, you got to go with it, right? I love how the Nancys are saying Brad is sleeping through free agency. I'm guessing we've made about the most moves of any team. We have, mathematically speaking, made the most moves of any team so far. So are they all headline grabbers? Probably not, but that does seem like Brad Holmes' way. Trey, what's good, everybody? Question mark. I think I know where Coach is going with this. Heard some stuff about Jordan this week. Let's see. Yes, you are correct with that. I know, what's his name? Used to be a Detroit Lion offensive lineman, works on 97.1 the ticket, but he did mention he's heard some of this as well. And, hey, I guess I'm not the only one who reads the same stuff. Same old suit, just reheated. Good morning, Coach Dan of the Duke Crew. Like number 5. Number 5 is alive. And thank you, my friend. Vincent, good morning, Coach Dan of the Duke Crew. Woo! Exclamation point, back at you. Johnny is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I guess. Dave, soup! Exclamation point, what's good? The corner we grabbed from the Bucs, I didn't like at first. After reading about him and watching some video, I see why they got him. Me too, man. I like his range. I think he plays some nickelback. I think he plays some safety for us. Kind of almost sounds, like a fill-in for Brian Branch until he's back and good to go. Anyways, I wonder how many of the big splash free agent moves in the past 5 years have actually paid off other than exciting the fans. That's a fair question to ask. Drake, Coach, the Panthers signed Walker. Are we locked into drafting someone in the first round? Now? I don't think so. I think, and I know I give you guys my picks. I think there's some room for second round, third round, whatever it may be. There's always the thought that maybe we just have the guys in-house too. It is possible. Remember, these moves are thought out and calculated, not just grabbing players because fans want such and such at defense end because he's popular. You're not wrong there, my friend. And good to see you, Donnie Burt. Dave Bing, what do you got? Good morning, Coach Dan and Duke Crew and Coach D. Hey, and back at you, France. The voice of reason, Don Burr. I've said all offseason. Sewell is our left tackle and Manu or Frazier are the right tackle. My mind hasn't changed. I could see Frazier. I mean, to be fair, I thought Manu played better than I anticipated. I did not have high expectations last year when he got out there. Would he be better at right tackle, or maybe in your case, maybe a tight end can chip in, buy him that half-second extra time? It could be. Manu, I think we all get it. Maybe one of the most athletic people to play the tackle position in the NFL. Now can he pan out with some skill sets? Good morning, Duke Crew. One pride. It just got leaked. Did Ben Johnson sneak in the Lions planning room? Exclamation point. We'll find out. Riley O'Brien, good morning, all. Back at you, my friend. We'll have you. I see you're on deck right now. We'll have you on here in about 1 minute. Jen, good morning, all. Brad changing the look of this team is a good thing. It is a good thing indeed. Curtis, what do you got? Hello, no power out here in Flowersville, Michigan. Hopefully you get it back fast, my friend. Hookadoo, good morning, Riley and Johnny. Mary Smith, good morning. Blessed morning, Duke Crew. It's always a blessed morning when we have you on the show. Jess France, you really feel one of those two are ready to start? We'll find out. Johnny, good morning to you, Mr. Hookadoo. Xavier, greetings, salutations, Coach Dan and the mighty Duke Crew. Hope everyone has a good morning and a blessed day. Exclamation point. Go Lions. Woo! I wonder if Brad has a place. Yeah, well, he probably does have a place to live at, maybe a plan to go to that place. All right, guys, it's about that time. Let's bring over, finally, with no further ado, let's bring over Riley O'Brien, a main member of the Do Crew. He's going to talk to us and give us his wise words of wisdom on many topics. Let's dive into it. Riley, how you doing this fine early morning for you?
Good morning, Coach Dan and the Do Crew. I'm doing great. How's everybody doing? I love the mock draft. It was a great change up to the usual. Plus, you still fit in the 5 headlines now, so we're rocking and rolling, man. It's a great, beautiful Saturday so far. So,
let's talk about free agency so far, because the Lions, I get every fan wants this big name, that big name. I mean, I get it. We want to feel like this is our saving grace. The Lions have made a lot of moves, more moves than any other NFL team. What's your first week assessment of what Brad and Dan have done for the organization?
Yeah, for me personally, trying to keep in mind that it hasn't been the splashy names. It hasn't been, I remember what I felt when the Lions acquired David Montgomery. It was different when they acquired Isaiah Pacheco, right? It's a familiar name. Oh, he's been a starter with Kansas City. So, is there a similar type of fit there? To my surprise, Pacheco was more. A lot of the statistics show he's very similar to Montgomery, and in my mind, I thought he's stylistically a lot more similar to Gibbs. And so, my point with that is trying to keep an open mind, right? When the Lions acquired Carlton Davis, I remember him getting lit up by Craig Reynolds in that game the year before when he sprung a Monroe for a touchdown there. And but then I looked into it and I was like, man, this guy's a really, really good player. And so, you see some of the players that the Lions have signed. Even if I'm not initially extremely fired up and excited about it, I try to keep in mind there's a reason that these players are targeted. And then, if we believe that Dan Campbell is a great coach, he's going to have to prove it this year. I think he has proved that he's a great coach. But all hands on deck this year, and we're about to find out if he can coach these guys up.
When we go on the show, leaked information, what do we want to say? There's a lot of information, whether you want to call it leaked or not, I don't know. I had to put something in the headline. It was early in the morning. If you had to ask most Lions fans in this chat or your opinion, I'm guessing they would say the biggest need right now is defensive end, maybe linebacker or safety. Lions have added some parts to the secondary. Where do you think they ultimately go with the defensive end position?
Yeah, I think that it's a matter now of before I jumped in the show, we're hearing the names of Calais Campbell and Cam Jordan. And I'll be honest, man, like if I was thinking going into last year, you think, hey, you missed the playoffs and then you obviously lose more talent. And then you're saying, if I had just told you there, hey, next offseason, the names you're talking about are Cam Jordan, Calais Campbell, it's not exciting, right? It's not to say that those players don't have value. Obviously, they're just older. And at this point, as you alluded to, it might be something where you're just bringing them on for camp. And I think that for the Lions, with new players coming in, and as I just was talking about Dan Campbell, obviously you're very selective in who you bring in and you're deliberate, but I'd like to see some youth, infused in there. And I'd like to see, we know that Ahmed Hassanin is going to be coming, hopefully, getting into the mix and proving his worth and ability. But I think that there needs to be some youth involved on the defensive line. And I think that is going to be a position for sure that they're going to target in the draft.
Talking about draft, we kind of walked everybody through at least an idea for a draft. And again, I didn't make any trades with this thing. Let me bring it back up on the screen. Then I just went with as the board fell. I didn't worry about, this, that, or the other thing. There was one guy I really wanted, but I didn't want to be a total USC homer. With the first pick, we did get Keldric Faulk. Do you have any thoughts on this guy? Because when I look at him, especially when I hear him talk, that's the biggest thing about scouting that gets most people is you can identify talent. Most people can see if you got skills, athleticism, but then you got to identify who's actually inside that noggin, that head. Mm-hmm. When I hear him talk, especially for lengthy periods of time, man, I am impressed with this guy. If the Lions had to trade up a spot or two, I would do it because I think he is somebody that's a captain, that's a leader, that's going to grind. He's got measurables that you just rarely see at, we'll just say 270, 280 pounds, runs a 4.7, 6'6". What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, you said if this ends up being the pick, what you're giving it an A+, right? For your Coach Dan's personal grade on there. Right. As you're talking about the player talking, I remember hearing Jeff Risdon of Detroit Lions podcast talking about being at the combine and listening to Christian Gonzalez do an interview. And while he's a good player, he alluded to another media member. I can't recall who it was. It's my fault. But he said that they just looked at each other and they knew this isn't a Dan Campbell guy. This isn't a Brad Holmes guy. It's not a Detroit Lions guy. Again, great player, but they're selective and you kind of have a niche for the players that you want. And we've seen that with the players that they've drafted. We know that Brad Holmes is going to go get the guy or do everything he can to get the guy that he loves. And
Right.
I personally I'm biased. I'd love for one of the Utah guys to end up on the offensive line. There's a lot of thought that Fanu's maybe a better player now, but maybe Lomu has potential to be a better player in the long run. But as far as, the players that you have mocked to the team, you can make an argument. There's needs on the team, right? So if it's a defensive lineman in the first round, I just have to make the assumption, okay, they deemed him a better D lineman than any of the offensive players were at their positions. And so, I tend to be pretty happy with the picks and just let it play out and as they get into the offseason and eventually into the season.
All right, let's move on to the next one here on the list. And again, you could probably tell this is a defensive heavy draft for me, just because I think that's where the biggest needs are. The offense, in my opinion, other than maybe a tackle, doesn't need much. But let's bring up Hill Jr. here. A lot of people aren't going to know a ton about him. I was torn with a couple other options. I think I mentioned that with the safeties, because there were a couple safeties. I like the guy we got, but there were a couple of guys that probably graded a little bit higher, but you can't have everybody. You don't have endless draft picks. Mm-hmm. So I went with Hill Jr. I mentioned this on the show. I love his RAS. I love his athleticism, not just straight line, vertical, parallel movements, the whole thing. He covers a lot of ground. Alex Anzalone did a lot of that. Great in coverage, run support. Hill Jr., is he going to do all that as rookie? No. But you bring in somebody that can play special teams as a rookie, add some pop there while adding some severe athleticism to your linebacking group. Throw your thoughts out there.
Yeah, I think it was a great pick. And as I was listening to it live, as I was kind of getting ready to come on as well, I thought, the reasons there, because again, now, hey, the Lions re-signed Malcolm Rodriguez. Great. You re-signed Trevor Nowaski. Great. That's fine. But if we go into the season and that's the week one starting lineup, I think there's going to be obviously some consequences. Those two of those three guys are players that you'd love to have as depth, right? And coming off the bench, so to say. So, if you're going to take a swing on a guy for all of the reasons that you mentioned, his athleticism, his ability to cover ground, the type of player that you can mold in, and then you envision him playing with a Jack Campbell. And I think it's pretty easy to see. And I do agree with you as far as most of the needs on this team tend to be on the defensive side of the ball.
All right, let's move on to the next one on the list, and that would be a defensive tackle, Chris McClellan. I know a lot of fans didn't want him or want somebody probably like this at this early in the draft, just because we do have other needs. But the other part of it is drafting the best players available, building up a particular aspect of your team or depth. You throw him in there with what we have with McNeil, Tyleek Tafreak Williams. Well, now you don't have as big an issue with any kind of depth spots. You actually have some good players coming in, rotating, keeping them all healthier, keeping them all fresher throughout the year. And I do think the Lions will make some other moves because you'll need a fourth, maybe even a fifth defensive tackle. But keeping the price tags down is also part of a general manager's positions. Part of their jobs when they're signing players in free agency or the draft is how, if I'm going to pay one guy this amount, how do I lessen that overall cap positional burden by paying other players lesser amounts? Throw your thoughts on here about Chris.
Yeah, so I think, and I would be dishonest if I spoke, directly about him as a player, just as far as, I haven't watched him play, so I don't want to pretend that I, have scouted him or anything. But as far as what you're talking about, I think it makes sense, and it is what I was saying before, where, I want to see youth infused on the defensive line, because if you can hit it, we saw a lot of guys that Dan Campbell hit or Brad Holmes hit early in his tenure selecting these guys. Imagine, and I think almost that's kind of what is going to happen now. We get another one in the third or get another one in the fourth, a project that can be a defensive player there again, and then you start to have you can form an identity really quick. Right now, it's like on the edge, we got Ahmed and there's Aiden Hutchinson. And so now what? But again, if you start to see development from Tyleek, Aleem starts to return to his form, and then you start getting these younger players in, and suddenly the puzzle pieces start to fill, and then it's a lot easier to visualize it. So again, I do like the direction on that with the defensive assets being used to try to reinforce the defense, because I do think it's needed, obviously.
Okay. All right. Let's move on from that one and get to the next one here. And as you can see, it's Big Seth in the house. Who's in the house? Seth in the house. And yes, another spot where probably a lot of Lions fans, don't want to go with a running back, especially at this point in the draft. But at the same time, I know I mentioned this. There was another USC defensive edge who I really like because he's got unteachable, metrics as far as size, athleticism, speed, tons of speed. But the other part of it is Gibbs is about to get paid. Pacheco's on a 1-year deal. If you're going to pay one guy, you have to try to deflate the rest of the cost of that position, which is why I think, or at least part of the reason they moved off David Montgomery. So talking about Seth here, he's, depending on where you look, 220 to 230 pounds. That's a pretty big running back, especially someone who's running sub 4.5. What are your thoughts on adding somebody like that who doesn't have to come in this year as a rookie, give you tons of carries, more of a rotational piece with Gibbs and Pacheco?
It makes a ton of sense because, again, it would to me, I've thought all along, again, but probably bias being a Utah Ute fan, but I watched Sione Vaki play football in person many times, and it's kind of strange to me that it hasn't panned out. I didn't expect him to come into the NFL and be a prolific running back right off the bat, but I know he has the ability, but clearly if the Lions, and we talk about it a lot, health is obviously a big component there, but if they were confident that he could step up into Montgomery's, then you don't go acquire Pacheco. And so now you go get Pacheco, right? And then it's, okay, what if, hopefully it never happens. We've had enough of the injury, bad luck, but yeah, if it goes down, now, do you want to go to Sione Vaki, somebody that you could have gone to? And again, it's always all hands on deck. Everybody has to play their part. But it just seems, again, if they had more confidence in Vaki or one of the other, guys that's on the depth chart there, that they would. I can see a running back being taken, sure, is what I feel on that. And it would make sense if you feel like you got a guy there that pairs well with Gibbs, because you're looking at him hopefully being the running back on this team for the next 4 or 5 years. And so you got to keep somebody that's complementary towards Jameer's play style.
Yeah, and if you feel like, to your point, I know about Vaki when we draft, or the Lions draft him, because he unfortunately torched USC a few times,
right?
But he's got abilities. You get it. I get it. I think most of the fans get it. But he's just got to be healthy, and that's for whatever reason just hasn't worked out so far for him in his NFL career. All right, going on to the next one. Talking about diamonds in the rough here. I really like this guy. He will bring the pain, I believe, if we are able to select him, and it's VJ. 6'3", just shy of 6'4", as a safety / corner, somebody who can play both. He's got 4.4. There's some reports on him that his pro day, his speeds were like 4.3. So he's able to move. I like a whole lot of things about him. He does have to locate the ball better. If you're the Lions and you're at pick, gosh, what was it when we got him? 157. You're probably starting to hit the point in the draft where you're going to have some projections. Not everybody's going to be a diamond in the rough, blue chip guy. Could be someone like, I don't know, Kirby Joseph, who, remember, was a 3rd-round pick, had to pan out, took a little bit of time. But what are your thoughts on VJ Payne? Yeah,
so again, somebody who I respect a ton, Jeff Risdon, and a lot of different outlets. You're talking the strengths of this draft class, pass rush, offensive tackle, and then the secondary, particularly the safety. So one thing that I heard Jeff say recently on his show that now I kind of back pocketed, he says, it's not unreasonable to think you could get a starter at safety in the 4th round. And I think that's, 4th or 5th round here. What'd you say it was? Pick 157 there. So yeah, I mean, ideally you get Branch and Kirby back and they can return to their form, but we just don't know. It's such an odd time right now because I feel like the Lions are still a really good team, but I'd be lying if I said I feel like they're as good as I did this point last year, certainly the year before that. And so yeah, I think somebody in the secondary, a youthful player, I think that's just where the team is. And we kind of should have seen this coming. And I think most of the Duke crew did. When you start to pay these guys and that money kicks in, bills are due, you got to go get the draft, and so we don't know these players, but
Right.
Imagine if you can get a diamond in the rough, if you can get a Pro Bowler in the 4th round again, suddenly things can change pretty quick as far as how, the outlook and what we feel. And certainly for that secondary group, which there's talent and there's assets that have been spent there, but not health, right? Terrion's been out, Kirby's out, Branch is out. So we just need some luck with, good players with potential to be good for a long time and hopefully stay healthy.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next guy on this list. And thank you for those thoughts there, Riley. And that's going to be Everette, our cornerback another cornerback that secondary person. I'll just say that. Again, looking for stuff you can't teach. He's got some size. He's got some wheels. You see it on your screens there. I get most people aren't going to know these guys because how often do we really break down people when you're talking about nearly 200 or below? A lot of these guys are not going to be household names. So again, I try to identify certain stuff you can't teach, size, strength, speed. And if I could, I try to break down their personalities too. So going with that, you got Everette on the board here. Throw some thoughts about a 6'1", slightly taller, sub 4.4 cornerback.
Well, with Brad Holmes, right, his whole thing was corner. And so I keep thinking he's going to take, that's why I had such hopes with Terry on that and him obviously being a 1st-round player. We know the Lions just acquired a couple of defensive backs here the last couple of days, but again, we just need those reinforcements. I don't know, and Duke Crew, you tell me, what are your expectations with Rakestraw, right? Can they be reliable? It almost seems like if he, I hate to say it, but you're getting to that Levi O territory a little bit as far as, you almost think anything now you get from him is a benefit. And so, yeah, 6'1" corner with the physical intangibles. And like you said, if the personality's there, I just think it makes sense. Again, for me personally, I'm not trying to be overreactive one way or another on the players that are drafted because, again, it's something where we have to see. And the first time, if they get this guy in the 6th round and the first time he gets a pick, you love the guy. So, yeah, I think that it's got to give these players a chance. But I think the strategy, Coach Dan, as far as the players that you've picked and how you've gone about it, what is it? Only one offensive player so far.
Yeah,
I think that there's sense to that. So certainly a secondary reinforcement. I'm all welcome for that.
Yeah, and again with that with the running back, excuse me, Seth at 128, I really struggled taking him because there was somebody else I wanted defensive line, but at the same time trying to keep costs down the running back room. That's where we went. Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one here. This one is a bit of a folklore legend to a lot of the Duke crew because I've heard so many of them mention his name, and that is Clark Kent, Sam Roush, a tight end, 6'6", 200, we'll just say 70 pounds, but he's got some wheels. He can motor. He can catch the ball and run with it. He blocks well. We all have thoughts that because of Drew Petzing's ideal offense, although Dan Campbell's come out and said now he's going to coach more of our kind of offense, it does sound like the Lions may want to try and invest more than they have in the past in the depth of the tight end room for 12 and 13 personnel. Does this guy make any sense to you?
Yeah. So again, the sense of the tight end, asset being spent there. Yes, that makes sense. Again, this you gotta I wonder what the record is for one side of the ball, the least amount of picks. So would the Lions go a whole draft with only one offensive pick in this case? I think you got to have at least two, right? And so if it's a tight end, you're probably not taking a quarterback given that Teddy Bridgewater's back. You're probably not taking a receiver given that you're expecting Tesla to step up. And, there's offensive line room that you need there, but as far as the tight end, yeah, I think that would make sense because again, last year we saw it was quickly a drop off from Laporta to, the other guys there. So hopefully if you can stash somebody away that maybe he's on a practice squad for a little bit there and then gets called up at, as needed and can play. Again, I can't speak to the player specifically, but I do think that it's sensible that they would go with the tight end later with the later pick in the draft. I'd be stunned if it was earlier, but later, yes.
Right. All right, the next pick, if this goes down for the Lions and we get him, I can tell you this will probably be me. Because if we get Eric Gentry, I'm going to be happy. And again, I get his numbers is in regards to his weight. He's going to have to have a couple trips to the Circle K to get a Mountain Dew and maybe a hot dog off the roller grill. He's going to have to beef up a little bit. But again, you can teach that to an extent. I'll just throw this at everybody. Adding 10 pounds, even 15 pounds to a 6'7" guy is not going to be the hardest thing if you're talking about a year to 2 years worth of development. But he is all of 6'7". He has massive speed for a guy his size. His lateral quickness is off the chart. His RAS scores, we'll just say that instead of just 40 time. But he's got everything you can't teach. And he's 6'7". And you'd be getting him in, I think he's not going very early in the draft by any stretch of the imagination, but I got him at pick 213. He is somebody, if you're going to play more zone coverage, which I think all indications are that the Lions are going to play more and more zone coverage this year, try to make it about 50-50, I should say. And you're going to ask him to maybe blitz the quarterback from time to time. Well, think about how long that wingspan is. He's got massive wingspan, by the way. When you go sideline, so finger point to finger point. Yeah. I mean, he's got the wingspan of a 7'3" guy, I want to say. So imagine how many tip passes he could have, let alone the reach trying to get to the quarterback on the blitz. Thoughts on a 6'7" linebacker potentially coming to Detroit?
Yeah, so at this point in the draft, I think, again, you are just like you were describing there. You do start kind of thinking, okay, is he a good football player? Do we like his personality, right? But then you start looking at, okay, the ingredients of the whole recipe, right? How would he fit, stylistically with, some of the other defensive players? Because again, I think it's likely that if the majority of these picks are defensive players, I would expect at some point all season or throughout the course of the season, all of them at some point take the field. And so just given with the state of the team, I wonder too on this, how much does the acquisition for you, Coach Dan, of Kade Mize, because I don't think that we've seen an offensive line pick here in this draft, and it's hard to take everybody. I understand that, but are you that worried about the defensive side of the ball as opposed to the offensive line?
So my answer to that is I'm more interested in improving the defense with the Lions offense. Mize is going to come in and start. I don't think there's a question about that unless he's a complete swing of the bat and the miss. So with that said, now you look at the guard spot. I like Juice. I think he's going to add competition to the backup center spot plus both guard spots. You already had depth at the guard spot if you believe Christian Mahogany, Tate Ratledge, Miles Frazier are all in that mix for it. I do think the Lions will add another piece or so there as well. So if you've got depth there, now you look at Larry Borom. I don't think he's a starter, but I do think he brings good competition to the backup spots. If Borom has to start, I think you can get by for a game or two. You can do some things schematically to probably make him an acceptable guy. You look at Giovanni Manu. I know nobody knows what to expect out of him. Yeah. I can only tell you when we drafted him in that rookie year, when he played in the preseason, you could see why they drafted him, but you could also see this kid's nowhere ready to be on the field. Right. Then you go back to last year in the preseason, and to be fair, against Cincinnati, I thought he showed significant improvement. Now, is he ready to be a starter? It's $1 million question. I don't think so, but they don't ask me, and I don't see him enough. When we get to training camp this year in the preseason games, that's probably going to be a big tell. If the Lions already have a feeling that Miles Frazier or Giovanni Manu or Larry Borom are able to come in as a starter, they might not have to address it early, or at least as early as many of us think, which now allows you to invest a whole lot, as you're seeing with this draft, into the defense. And with the focus I had on the draft this year, we're getting bigger, faster, and stronger. We're trying to add more toughness to that front seven, because last year we did get pushed around a bit. In some of its injuries, I get it. But the other part is sometimes you look at what the rest of the NFC has done. They got tired of the Lions just beating the bejesus out of them for a couple years under Dan Campbell with the offensive line and defensive line. So what they do, they got bigger and faster and stronger than the Detroit Lions, and now they were bullying the Detroit Lions. How do you combat that? You now have to, I mean, it's like watching countries in war. Everybody's got to, get bigger weapons, and that's basically what I thought the Lions have to do. I think the offensive line is not as dire as most people think. Now, that being said, the last pick I had for us was a bigger, faster, stronger pick. This guy is massive, Riley. Hey, now also probably didn't hurt that his name was Riley, right?
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah, and he's 6'8". He's got some wheels. He's got some athleticism. 320. He's probably about 8 pounds shy of where you would ideally like your left tackle or right tackle to be, but it's not that far off. Thoughts on Riley?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think he's got a great name. But yeah, and then evidently here I jumped the gun because I was listening to this, and I do remember that you had made this pick here, so I did jump the gun. But I love the thoughts on the offensive line, and that's kind of what I was thinking and wondering if that's where you were going. And if the Dew Crew, you tell us, do you guys agree? Because it seems like the sentiment this whole offseason, at least a good part of it, because with Rag now coming back and then not, and then, before that, retiring, right? And then coming back and then not. And then Decker coming back and then not. And then, feels like you're playing guys out of position. And suddenly it kind of felt like, okay, well, Panay's, looking around, where's everybody in the room? Ratledge is there for sure. But I think with what you've described, if the players that the Lions have taken, if you get what you can get out of Mahogany and Manu and Frazier, maybe there's not just blind hope there. Maybe these players are going to be developed and going to actually take the next step and be ready. And so, maybe it's not as big of a need as it maybe feels like it is. And so, if you're going a late round pick here, get another guy that's a reinforcement along the offensive line. I think that would make sense. And then especially if I kind of do really like the outline of how you've set this up here with, you've got a running back, a tight end, and an offensive lineman there. And then everything else is just on the defense. I think that's a pretty close fitting puzzle there, at least as far as it stands today, which we're getting closer and closer to the draft. What are we, March 14th? So,
right.
Yeah, about 6 weeks away. I love it. I think that the picks and the assets make sense. It'll just be a matter of, are these the right players to be selected? And that's kind of the fun of it, is finding out if that's, if they are.
Well, Riley, man, we've gone on longer than I thought. Overall, what do you think if free agency, we've got a couple of weeks left of it, in earnest at least. Do you think the Lions make any other moves? I know we've talked about in part of today's show, all the whispers, rumors, leaked information, whatever you want to say, from insiders that the Lions have some sort of agreement with Cam Jordan or somebody else. To be fair, they mentioned Cam Jordan and Cleus Campbell. They don't say that's who it is, but they do believe the Lions are going to have some guys come in who are vets, or basically saying, we'll join you, but not until after, basically halfway through training camp. You think there's validity to that, or do you think the Lions are just going to grab somebody?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I think we kind of see it every offseason. It kind of felt like last year, maybe that's what they were trying to do with Darius Smith, and then we found out why. It was weird. He goes to Philly, has one great game, and then retired, or, however that ended up happening. It wouldn't be a surprise to me, but I feel like the way that the Lions have done free agency so far, they're kind of showing their cards. They're kind of showing their draft strategy. So now, are they going to settle for the position, or are they going to make sure, okay, we're targeting 3, 4, 5 guys at each position. As long as we can get one of them, then we can go from there. So I don't really think that there's going to be a lot of movement with the Lions with free agency. They're going to draft the players. Hopefully they get the guys that they want and then go fill the gaps from there. But I think that the acquisitions that they've made so far, I think that's probably going to be about it. Now you got to go draft the guys. And then, if at the end you didn't get 1 or 2 of the defensive players, maybe that you've outlined or that Brad Holmes has outlined, then you call up Cam Jordan. You say, hey man, you ready to rock? You still interested in doing this? That wouldn't surprise me at all. So I think that the roster is kind of taking shape, even though there's still questions. But it's going to be fun to evaluate the draft. But I think that that's kind of where we stand right now. Is I don't expect a lot of more movement until after the players are drafted.
The other part, just so I'm clear with some of my thoughts, when it came to the offense, paying attention to Petsing and Campbell, kind of merging what I think they're going to do offensively. I also believe because of that, there's less of a need for a just absolute premier left or right tackle, because you are going to have so many other blockers out there. You would have to be somebody at the NFL level who is just the most incomplete tackle, right or left, if you can't hold your block without assistance for about 2 seconds. And if you have zero faith in that guy to block, then you know what, he shouldn't be on your roster. So part of it is, if we're going to play more, say 12 personnel, which I don't know if we will, think it's a possibility, then that tackle, whether it be on the left side or the right side, they're going to have a tight end and a running back helping chip block a lot. which means there's less of a need for, a $20 million a year left tackle, right tackle, etc.
Otherwise, they would have paid Decker what he wants. Right.
It's possible, yeah. Or gone after Walker. And I'm not saying Walker would have been an answer, but hopefully you get where I'm going with him.
For sure.
All right, Riley.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I talk a lot. I'm verbose, but you said it perfectly. So let's roll with it. It's good.
Fair enough, man. All right. Why don't you go ahead and give yourself a shout out? Tell everybody where they can find you, support you, and all the things you do for the Lions family.
Lions Talk Live. I'm hoping to. I do know we've got somebody in the works that we're going to have on with Coach Dan. I'm really excited to have on here pretty soon. So, I'm happy to try to line things up with Coach Dan and again, appreciate the Duke crew. A lot of people have messaged me, and that means a lot. I love the community, even though I'm out here in Utah. It feels like we're all, friends, and it's a great way to start the day every day. So, yep, Riley O'Brien. I'm again fully Lions Talk Live. And hopefully I'll see you guys here again next week. And then we got a pretty good guest coming in, so I'm excited about that as well.
All right. Riley, we'll go ahead and get you out of here. I know it's super early where you're at, man, so maybe you can get a quick nap in before you go out to your day. So awesome. Take care, man. We'll get you on another time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you now.
See you.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up today's show. Gave it a little bit of extra overtime, but, man, an extensive interview with Riley, so thankfully he was able to get on today. And, yes, I need a hairstylist this morning. All right, Duke Crew, if there is breaking news later today, I'll get over to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, you would be so kind before departing. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit all the buttons. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Do something kind for somebody you don't know. Be a good human being. We'll see you on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody.